Hey people, welcome to the Angels, Babes and Bitches show with me, Ruby. My guest today is Jessi. Jessi is originally from Germany and currently lives in Finland. She is a life coach and founded a startup together with one of her best friends. Jessi specializes in self and body love. Hi, Jessi, welcome to my show.
Hi, Ruby. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you on my show. When we spoke for the first time, you were so forthcoming about what had happened in your life, and I want to just say that I'm so honored to have you on my show. People, Jessi is one brave woman, and I hope that she would start by sharing some of her story with us.
Thank you, Ruby. Oh man, you're going to make me cry here.
I hope not.
I love to share a bit about my story. So, as you said, I'm a life coach nowadays, but my story starts quite some time ago when I was still living in Germany, and I went through a burnout and subsequent depression. And through that experience of this very intense mental illness, I had to really reevaluate my life, change a lot of my priorities, change my lifestyle, my mindset. And it kind of led me to where I am today, that I'm working as a coach and that I'm supporting other people in embracing their empowered lives.
Oh, that's so good because I think even through all the ups and downs you've gone through, it's now like very positive and you've come out on the other side. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on this podcast because it's uh, it's a different ending to a tough story, I think.
Hmm.
Um, can you tell me a little bit more about what happened when you were working as a journalist?
So when I was living in Germany at that time, I was kind of living the perfect life. At least I was living the life that I had always dreamed of. So when I was growing up, I always told everybody, I'm going to be a journalist. I'm going to live in Berlin. I'm going to work for these fancy newspapers. I'm going to write about politics. And that's kind of where I was. I was living in Berlin. I was, as you said, like working as a journalist part-time for one of the biggest newspapers in Germany, Die Zeit Online. And at the same time, I was studying at one of the best universities in Germany.
Nice.
And I had just gotten a spot to do an exchange year at Brown University in the US, and even a scholarship on top of that. So my life looked amazing on paper. I had an amazing CV. It looked like, my career was just starting to really kick off. And then one day I just woke up after another night shift
Yeah.
at the newspaper. I was working at the news desk at the time, and I couldn't do anything anymore. I was so tired and exhausted, but even more so, I think I was emotionless.
Oh
I
my
had
God.
lost kind of all sense of emotion. And I thought it would go away, but like after a couple of days, I remember distinctly how I called my friend and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm so tired. And she's like, you always do this, Jessi. You work super hard, then you chill for a week, you're fine. I'm like, this is different. This is not it. And I had to acknowledge for myself that I had a deep depression and that I needed help.
So though everything was right in your life, as you said, on paper everything looked good, but it actually wasn't at a much, I think,
Yes.
deeper level. So this was this phase where you had a burnout because of a lot of work and your studies, and there was so many things happening in your life, all at one go. How did your life change after this burnout episode?
Yeah, maybe to just clarify, yeah, like I was kind of, I was lighting the or burning the candle on both sides, and that's how I ended up. So I actually had to do some very radical changes. Um, Depression is a very serious disease, so I had to go and get therapy and had to take a very honest look in my life. And I realized that I wasn't living a life that, I authentically wanted to live. I lived the life that I thought I should live. I lived the high status life. I lived the life that, my family told me I should live. I lived the
Yeah.
life that everybody kind of expected me to do. And so one of the things that I had to do is break free from that life. I moved to Sweden.
Yeah.
I started studying there, and for a while I didn't work at all to give myself space to heal. And then when I started working again, I just worked for a cafe, so nothing that is kind of like good on your CV. And
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time volunteering at the cat shelter because I love cats. And once again,
Yeah.
it's something that doesn't look good on the CV, but I love doing it, I would have until then, everything I did for my CV. Everything I did for my career.
Yeah.
And now I was like, wait, what does Jessi want? What does she want to do? And I was like, I want to help little cats. So that's what I did on the weekends. I volunteered at that shelter, and it was amazing.
Yeah, I think it's actually surprising, and I think it's not only about you, it's about most people, that we all do things that maybe this world or society expects us to do and that look good on our CVs or on Instagram or on Facebook. But what we really want could be very different. It could just be working in a cafe, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there were other things also that made this situation a little more worse for you.
Yeah, so through my burnout, and through the depression, I actually got back the memories of my rape, because I didn't realize, like, I had kind of lost that memory, which is very common when we talk about trauma, that people
Yeah.
kind of forget what happened. But through the burnout, because there were so many, like, emotions and things coming up, this
Yeah.
memory came back. And I remembered that I actually had been raped when I was 18. And so, like, on top of the depression, I also had to handle the PTSD. I had to handle, like, sharing that information with my friends, sharing it with my family. I also went
Yeah.
to the police, I sued that person.
Yeah.
Like, all of these things were set into motion. And like, in addition to already having a burnout, it was very intense experience.
I mean, I can't even imagine really. I think this is only for someone who has gone through, they know what they have gone through during this period. Someone who hasn't gone through it can hear and, of course, feel terribly bad about it, but you can't imagine it um, to the extent that it happens to someone. So, this was, of course, a very difficult situation for you. What kept you going during this time?
What kept me going, I think, most and foremost, was my wonderful sister, who is a psychologist. She's currently actually doing a PhD in psychology. And she was the one, I called her. I was like, this is how I'm feeling. This is what is going on.
Yeah.
And she was like, Jessi, you need help. You need therapy. You need to go. Because I think many people, when they are depressed or when they are struggling with any kind of mental illness, it's hard to do that first step. It's hard to go to the therapist. It's hard to go to the health center in Finland and be like, hey, I need help. But
Mm.
for me, it was easier because I had my sister who pushed me and who told me, you really need this. And you really, like, you deserve it in some sense. Like, you are bad enough. And it was good to be given that permission, that somebody said,
Yeah.
you are bad enough. You should really go. And I think the other thing that always kept me going, apart from, like, my sister and, of course, beautiful friends that I had along the way, is that I'm a very hopeful person. Like, I always believe that things will get better. Even when I'm going through trauma, I have this maybe, I don't want to say naive because I think life is very hopeful, but I have a very strong sense of that if you keep on going, if you just take the next step, like the next right step, it will get better. And so far it has. So that's quite good.
Yeah, I think we all need to have hope in our lives that things will get better, and they eventually do. Just takes time sometimes. So I think
Yeah.
everybody needs to be hopeful and positive. It's very, I think, important in this day
Yeah.
and age. And we had, I'm again talking about so many things we have spoken about earlier because that's how we are having this, then this podcast chat. And I
Mm.
remember this very good conversation about basic instincts in traumatic situations. And
Mm.
I would like to hear more from you about, what are your thoughts on basic instincts?
As you mentioned, Ruby, we talked a bit more in depth about this prior, because my experience with the rape was that I thought this is not rape,
Mm,
because I didn't go through what we classically think of as this basic instinct, which is flight or like fight. So either
yeah,
you run away or
yeah.
you're fighting. I didn't do either of that.
Mm,
So I was kind of like, well, it can't be rape then, right? Because I didn't respond that way.
exactly, yeah.
And I did a lot of research on the topic when the memories came back, and I understood that there are different ways of how we can react. Nowadays, it's very established that we also have a freeze reaction when we are in very traumatic, intense situations. So you can see that also in nature, that certain animals, when they are getting attacked, they're freezing. So
They're
they're
freezing.
pretending that they're dead,
Yeah,
hoping that, the person will, or like the other animal will stop attacking them. And similar to that, our body can also freeze when we are in trauma situations.
true.
And this is what happened to me. And it's also why, at the end of the day, my lawsuit got dropped, because back in the
Ah,
day, in Germany, you had to fight your rapist for it to be rape. No
oh my
didn't
God.
no didn't mean no. Nowadays it's different, thankfully. But back in
Yeah.
the day, if you said no, that wasn't enough. You had to fight that person. So for me, it was very important to understand that freezing, it's normal, it's okay, it's part of your basic instinct, and it's not like a conscious decision that you're making.
Yeah, that's really sad that, they had this kind of a law back in Germany. Because I think
Yeah.
yeah, I think in trauma situations, like most people will freeze rather than
Mm.
fight or flight. I mean, it's very difficult to tell. It's individual to each person.
Yeah, and you
That's
can't know
it's
in
really sad.
advance because,
No,
yeah.
I think you won't know till you're not in that situation. And it could be
Mm.
anything. It could be you coming in front of a car, or it could be any kind of situation where you have this survival instinct. In spite of all these difficulties and challenges that you've had, you now have a startup with your best friend and you are a life coach. How did this come about, this big change in your life?
Yeah.
Something nice to talk about.
Yeah, totally. Very nice to talk about. I think that this big change in my life, it came, we already touched a bit upon it, but
Yeah.
through very radical changes, through reprioritizing what is important to me versus what I should think is important to me. So I try to build my life around what is it that I want, what is it that I need, instead of like what are other people telling me what I should want and what I should need. So letting go of this big shoulding.
Yeah.
In a more practical sense, that meant, of course, years of therapy. That meant nowadays also years of coaching. So when I
Yeah.
was at a point with my therapy where I realized, okay, I'm surviving now, I'm like okay now, I wanted
Mhm.
to thrive. So that is when I found coaching, and I worked with many different coaches over the years now, and they have helped immensely in my growth and where I am today.
Wow, it's amazing. I think you have an amazing story of positivity, where everything could have
Thank
been
you.
wrong, but it's right, and you have moved on with your life, and you're doing something to help others. I think that's something so positive. Is there any advice you would want to give to someone who might be in a similar situation of stress, burnout, trauma? Could be anything.
The advice I want to give is that you deserve help. You are worth of help. Um, and I think for many of my clients, or even many people that I interact with when it comes to mental health, they read my stories, they reach out because of my articles, and they tell me what they've been through. And I always tell them, like, you deserve help. You deserve to go to a therapist. You deserve to go to a doctor. You deserve to invest into a life coach. You deserve to invest into yourself. Because when we are so far down and we are so deep into this depressed and critical mindset, it can be hard to stand up for ourselves. So I just want you to know you really, really deserve any help, and you deserve to ask for it.
That's I think that's very good advice, because most of us, or when we are in a difficult situation, or the kind of situation you or have gone through, we don't ask, we don't seek help at all. And I remember even my general practitioner in Singapore telling me once that people just don't want to go to any kind of doctor to talk about their mental health issues, even in
Mm,
very developed countries. So
yeah.
it's really sad that people have this kind of taboo, or not taboo. How do you say, this kind of reservation about going to psychologists, life coach, psychiatrists, whatever they need at that
Yeah.
point in their life. And any words of encouragement for all our listeners, because you are a life coach. Anything you want to say to them?
I think for me, what I want to say is, I want them to kind of lead their lives with compassion. It's been one of my core messages along the way, is accepting that we as human beings, we are imperfect, we are going to make mistakes, we are going to fail, and even like, even if we try, it can still be that we fall on our face. So most important thing along the way is to be really compassionate with yourself, and to kind of heal that relationship with your inner critic, that inner voice in your head that tells you that you are not good enough or you are not worth it. You really are good enough and you really are worth it. So I want you to lead with compassion when you are checking in with yourself, and while you are on your journey.
That is a very beautiful message from Jessie. I really love it.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
to end this, Jessie is most definitely a sexy babe who has overcome a traumatic situation and has come out on the other side bolder and braver. How sexy is that? See you next week with another super story. Thank you, Jessie, for being on my podcast. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
this. Thank you.